And that's what I always talk about is that uncertainty is the number one fear for the human mind. Our
Yep,
mind does not like uncertainty.
that's
And
right.
so it's trying to bring in certainty. And how it does that is it creates habits and behaviors to create the certainty. And then it becomes unconscious and you just live the habits and behaviors and have no idea why you do them.
That's right. That's right. And I so appreciate speaking with you, Don, because you came at it from the clinical point of view and you learned all of this stuff. And I found myself so fortunate to be able to find it not only in psychology, but in neuroscience, as you talk about, but also in spirituality and Buddhism. And they all pointed back from millennial old wisdom to modern day thought leaders. They're all pointing back to the same thing, how the mind works.
Yep.
It's not spirituality, it's how the mind works. And the sooner people understand that they're in charge, they're actually the boss, right? So they're not the paid intern just taking orders.
Yeah. I like that. That's a great way of saying it. Yeah.
Yeah. But without that clarity, you're living on autopilot.
And it's just the way that the brain works and the mind works. And that's what I do. And I basically do about a 4-hour session with them. And the first 2 hours is all science and education about what I learned.
Yes.
And what I get constantly in that part of the session is, gosh, this is making so much sense now. Now I understand. One of the very first things I say to them, there's nothing wrong with you and there's nothing wrong with your mind. And Holly, I'll have people sit and cry when I tell them that, because that's not what they're feeling. They feel like they're broken. There's something wrong with them. I go, there's nothing wrong. The experiences you had created the mind you're working with right now. So all we have to do is basically reboot the system, right? So that old data is constantly running, activating your nervous system, and it's going to show up in, mental health things, anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress. It's a glitch.
Yeah.
We can reboot the system.
That's right. That's right. Everything points to it, right? And that's what the Pure Love practices are all about. One of my classes is called Simple and Obvious ?
Yeah.
Because it is pretty straightforward, when you look at it, but it's just our minds that make it so complicated. And you're right, our minds are habit-based, there are no questions asked, appreciate the familiar or work with the familiar. So if a new idea doesn't match the programming, it's going to be rejected or manipulated. And that's where a lot of that anxiety can come up. It's like, what are you talking about? You can't do that. Are you crazy? So just even being aware of that you're going to meet this resistance when you start.
And I talk about that because people will say, well, I sabotage myself. And what I say to them, I go, it's impossible. The brain's a survival brain. It can't sabotage you. It's protecting you from what it believes is going to be something that's going to hurt you. So it'll move you in a direction. And you'll interpret that as, oh, I sabotaged myself because I went and I did this. I said, but in actual fact, your mind was trying to stop something that would possibly hurt you based on the experiences that you had.
That's right.
That's not sabotage. That's actually a brilliant brain trying to protect you.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I called it, obviously I didn't come up with it, but the biocomputer. And it's just feeding back what you've given it. And what you're trying to give it something new, it doesn't match. And it's like error, but you're like, no, you have to just be the architect of your mental landscape. Right?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And you can start to change those neural connections and create new ones. But it takes time and patience and repetition. Right?
Yeah, I always say, think of repetition as research for the brain. It likes the research. Give me more data before I make a change. I want enough data.
Yeah.
I always use the story of if you walk 2 miles every day to get food, but every day you had to navigate through snipers and landmines, but you got there and back every day. And then somebody says, why are you doing that? There's a grocery store 100 yards down that road and it's well lit. It's really safe. Your mind won't accept that right off the bat.
Right.
So you got to start going 10 yards down the road, 20 yards, and teach it that this is safer, and then it'll change. It's designed to change.
It is malleable. I had a class last night, and I talked about, a lot of people think this is their world. It's solid, but when you start to break it down, I just happen to have these, right?
Oh, I love this. Okay.
Right? And then you break it down more, and you're like, oh, wait, I can move these things around a little bit, and finally, you realize that these are just kind of thoughts, and in the middle is that powerful you, right? That powerful that can really do anything. Like you said, it's a brilliant. The mind is brilliant. The brain is brilliant. If we use it that way, we can create our lives in whatever manner we want. But if we don't, then we can really get hurt and in trouble, but it's all inside.